wanted to hear about the history of your work with Virginia Cooperative Extension and Virginia Tech and what you've seen with grazing specifically, and specifically as it relates to dairy cattle.
This is important. During this whole period of time, Eric, 1980, 1990s, as we moved through those years and so forth, the price of goods, supplies, services, the price of capital items, you know, buildings, machinery and equipment and so forth, just continuously and steadily increased. I mean, it just kept going up. At the same time, the average U.S. all milk price, in other words, milk prices that dairymen were receiving for their milk across the nation on average, remained constant. So you had dairy prices, the milk prices were constant, and you had all of your operating costs, capital costs were increasing. And this really, shall we say, marked a challenge. It gave rise to a huge challenge for dairymen in reference to trying to maintain their viability in the dairy industry. A lot of dairymen at that point in time moving through that said, hey, you know, in order for me to survive, I got to do something different. So a lot of dairymen elected to increase milk production as a way of trying to deal with that. They milked more cows, they increased their herd size, milked more cows, they increased production per cow, and a lot of them worked real hard on trying to reduce or control their costs, or a combination of those three, okay? With all this happening, a number of dairymen said, you know what, I got to do something different. I mean, we just got to do something different to make things work here on the farm. And then I think this modern day grass movement that occurred back then, and also this rekindled interest in grass-based dairying and pasture-based dairying, at first was pure economics. It's just pure economics. It's like, you know, we got to do something different where we can economically be viable. So what happened is a lot of dairymen started to look at the grass-based dairying. At that time, we had other, let's say, dairymen that basically started into grass-based dairying, and they were in Augusta County, two of them, two farms, Red Mill Dairy and also Sunny Slope. Red Mill was owned by Bill and Crawford Patterson. Sunny Slope was owned by James Wanger. They said, look, we just want to do something different. We got to do something that's unique, it's out of the box. This thing of what we're doing now is pushing and shoving every day, 7 days a week, milking cows twice a day. We go out there, we have to feed the cows, breed cows, bedding, and so forth, grow the crops. We want to make this a family operation, and it's very difficult for us to just maintain that everyday pace. We're going to milk cows on grass, you know, we're going to feed the cows on grass and we'll produce milk off of grass. And if that doesn't work, we're going to do something else, but that's what we're going to do. And one of the dairymen made a comment, and he said, you know, he said, got to thinking about this thing, and I'll tell you who it was, it's James Wanger. He said, I was thinking, he said, what is going on here? He said, with the way I'm doing it now with the conventional dairyman, and I'm not kicking conventional dairyman because this is his way of, his philosophy in looking at it. He said, Jerry, everything that's stationary, we move. We go to the field, we plant the corn, we manage it for weeds and insects. We go to the field, we harvest it, we move it from the field to the silo, then we move it from the silo to the cow, and then after the cow eats it and ingests, we take the waste and we move it back to the field. He said, look at all of that time and energy and effort and money. And the one thing that moves, we make stationary. And he says, it just doesn't make sense. He said, so I feel like if we can take the cow and let her do the harvesting for us, spread the waste, he said, I think we'd be way ahead. And Bill and Crawford, they just felt like that, you know, all this constant work, and they're getting older, and that was a key factor, and they said, we're just not going to be able to sustain this type of living or production here on the farm. So they started into grazing. Now I want to make a point, and this is important. When they did that the first year, and they went from the conventional into the grazing, I got the farm management agent there to keep the financial records, okay, and so forth on on this the Patterson's dairy, because we wanted to see, you know, is this thing going to be financially successful? And so I remember when they did the transition from conventional into grass-based dairying, they had a high milk production. Their milk production, as far as a rolling yearly herd average for the conventional dairy, was about 23,700 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, which was pretty high. It was one of the highest in the state. And their net cash farm income was good. It was over $900. Now, when they went into the grass-based dairying the first year, they sold all the cows that they had. They wanted young cows, so they brought in about 98 young cows and started that. And their first year, I'm giving the economics on this because I think this is important. Their net cash farm income was over $1,000 on the grazing.
First year?
First year. Second year, it was over $1,100. The third year was over $1,200. The fourth year was over $1,300 net cash farm income. And then their fifth year was like $1,466 net cash farm income. Now, a lot of people will look at this and say, yeah, that's just one economic parameter, and they're right. We did not go in and collect all the economic data as far as we did not make adjustments for inventory. Cows, cattle, feed, equipment, buildings, this type of thing. Because when you make that adjustment, then you convert over, then you can extrapolate and you can calculate a % return on your investment, which is a true measure of profitability. But they reduced their costs significantly, and they really increased their net cash farm income per cow. Wanger, same way. He pretty much followed the same trend. He increased his net cash farm income. You say, well, what drove this rekindled interest? I think it was because of just pure economics. I mean, relatively constant milk prices, the cost of everything going up just drove people to think a different way. Now, a lot of dairymen, as they come in and so forth, they said, well, there's a lot of other reasons that I'm interested in pasture-based or grass-based dairying. One of those reasons that they give was they feel like it's more environmentally friendly. Okay, they feel like that you got all that sod out there, all that grass, legumes, forage and so forth, ties the soil down, so it really helps to prevent and reduce soil erosion. It helps to prevent the formation of sedimentation in the streams, which, you know, affects fish life and other aquatic life and so forth. They feel like that it also, like the diversity of plants that they use, particularly the clovers, white Dutch, ladonna, red, alfalfa, it helps with pollination. Other ones felt like that when you go into the rotational grazing with dairy cattle, it helped to really reduce the cull rate and improve the overall health of the cows. So that was a big plus for them, okay? Overall improved health of the animals there. Some of them, it was just lifestyle. It's just like, you know, the other lifestyle, I mean, people want to do it, that's fine, I have no problem with it. But for me, I just wanted to dairy, but the lifestyle of it is like in the spring and in the fall, I don't have to be so busy and just really push and shove, you know, to get all this work done with the crops and that type of thing.
And James eventually went to seasonal milk production. Exactly.
I think with all that being said, this kind of gives you some idea as to how all of this came about and the rekindled interest. We basically planned and implemented the Mid-Atlantic Dairy Grazing Field Day. And the first one we had, I think was, if I'm not mistaken, was in 1996. It was held in Augusta County, and it was held on Red Mill Dairy, Bill and Crawford Patterson. Eric, and you being in Extension, you know what this means. There were over 400 people at that event. I think if my count was, and this is an count that we had official, 432. And the interesting part about that field day was there were over 150 dairy farms represented. Not dairy farmers, but 150 dairy farms. That is huge. And the reason I brought that up is because we had the economic data, and they could come and see the dairy platform, they could see the paddocks, they could see the shape, the size, the lanes, the water, they could see the species, and they talked about it, and we talked about how to manage and so forth. It was a wonderful, great educational program. And I get goosebumps when I talk about this, because it's like, you know, before going through that whole process of, you know, learning how to graze and all the management practices and keeping the economics, and I want to digress here a little bit and say this, and I was surprised about this. There was a tremendous amount of pushback from the agricultural community against dairy grazing, milking or producing milk off of grass. I was shocked. And I'm bringing that out because it was bad enough or serious enough that I think it deserves some comment. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people in all sectors of the industry were like, this is a fad. Everybody knows this is a fad. Everybody knows this is not going to work. There is no way that you can produce milk off of pasture and produce enough milk to pay your bills and survive. It's just not going to happen. We get called out to meetings. The first question, and it was, you know, it was ag meetings. The first question was, Bill, James, what is your rolling yearly herd average? It's all based on milk production, you know, and if you're in the dairy industry, it's like, you know, it's like more milk, more milk, more milk. And he would tell them, and it wasn't as high as what he had. I think it was down around, you know, 13,000, 14,000 pounds, I don't know, somewhere in that ballpark, versus a 23.7 pounds rolling, you know. And so the second question, how many times do you have to get off your tractor to move that fence? And, you know, it's like, Then the third question was, or I shouldn't say third, but the last question, and these three happen every time. There was other questions, but the last question was, do you really think that you can be successful milking cows, producing milk on grass? And I remember Bill Patterson would say, well, I know I can, because I am doing it. Now, I can't speak for you, but I know I can, because we're doing it. We're doing it at home. And so it's working for us. I feel like that program, the fact that we had that economic data and we had other data there that we could share, really set the course for management intensive rotational grazing in the dairy industry. I really believe that.